Hey everyone, Jeremy Langlois here, coming to you from Houmas House Estate and Gardens. And today we're going to be preparing the classic combination of tomato basil soup and grilled cheese sandwich. Just classic combination. This is comfort food at its best. And because I'm a chef, we're going to be working back and forth. You know, a chef just can't focus on one thing. So as we cook this, we're going to go bounce back and forth. We'll get the soup going, then we'll do the grilled cheese, and So let me show you what we got here, guys. These are just some tomatoes that I went and I brought to the store. Look for the ripest tomatoes you can find. And I just went and I split them in half and put them on a baking sheet. Now I'm just going to put a quick little seasoning on it. You know, this is just classic flavors when you think of tomatoes. I'm going to add a little bit of fresh salt. And I'm just going to kind of sprinkle on. Come back with some cracked black pepper. Just a splash of balsamic vinegar on each one. I'm just going to go to each tomato and add a little splash on top of the tomato, because what's going to happen is we're going to have an oven set to 350 degrees. This is extra virgin olive oil. Same thing, little splash on top. And then what we want to do is, again, oven set to 350 degrees, and we will stick this into the oven for about 20 minutes. And what's going to happen is they're going to roast up beautifully, and they're going to start to caramelize. That balsamic and that olive oil is really going to help these tomatoes roast and get a great flavor, a great bold flavor that you wouldn't get if we just threw the tomatoes directly into the pot. But this is what they look like once they've come out of the oven. You get this. What's great about using this technique is you start to cook your tomatoes and you get this great caramelization and roasting flavor from the oven with that balsamic and the olive oil on it. So we got these cooked off, and we're going to go ahead and set these to the side because we're going to use these for our tomato basil soup. That's going to be the tomatoes we're going to use. Now, over here, got a little pot. I got it heating up. I'm going to add a little olive oil into here, and I'm going to start by sauteing some onions. I got a little bit of onions and celery and bell pepper because I'm a good Louisiana boy, and we put that in everything. But if you look at our recipes, which are always found on houmashouse.com, then you can see the full recipe there with all the ingredients and how much you need to put into it and all that. And all I'm looking to do is start to wilt these vegetables, little onion, celery, bell pepper. And then I always start with that, then add a little bit of minced garlic. I'm not sound like a broken record, but I always add my garlic right after the onion, celery, bell pepper, because minced garlic can sometimes burn very quickly in a hot skillet. So if you throw that in right away at the beginning, you risk burning your garlic, and if your garlic can burn very fast and it becomes very bitter. So I always like to add the onions in first, and it kind of cools the temperature of that pan that then allows us to add the garlic to it. All right. Just quickly, very quickly, this is all real time. This is how I would do it in the kitchen. Just get a quick saute on it. Now I'm going to come back and, where's my tongs? I'm going to put these tomatoes with all the juices and everything. I'm going to get these right into this pot. Get those all in there. Everybody with me? And even look, if I got a little juice here, that's all just flavor. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of that in there. Toss that around with that olive oil and those onions and celery. And then I'm going to add, for the liquid or the base of our soup, this is chicken stock. Now, I always say this, but we add chicken stock because it's a great neutral stock, just enough to cover those tomatoes. And we're going to bring this up to a simmer. And think about it. We already put those tomatoes in the oven, so the tomatoes have already kind of cooked and starting to break down. But now we're going to simmer it a little bit in that chicken stock, and they're going to break down even more. But you're going to also impart into the soup all that great roasted flavor. That's why we wanted to roast those tomatoes, because it really kind of boldens and intensifies that tomato flavor that you wouldn't get if you didn't take that step. So while that comes up to a simmer, let's go ahead and get our grilled cheese sandwich on. So this is what we're going to do here. Now, let's see. I'm going to go ahead, just a quick little hit of extra virgin olive oil in there just to get going. But then, look, no two ways around this, guys. The best way, one of the things that's going to give a good grilled cheese sandwich is cooking it in a lot of butter. So I'm going to get a generous amount of butter, because that bread, this is why it tastes so good, is going to soak up all that butter. So we're going to go ahead and get a generous amount of butter melting and get a nice pool of butter in here. Now, the thing about making this good grilled cheese sandwich that really is kind of, I'm going to use the word tricky, but it's not really tricky. It's just, you got to get, when you get your temperature perfect on your skillet, it's really when you can make a grilled cheese sandwich. If you have your temperature too hot, what's going to happen is the outside of your bread is going to brown instantly. Like I'm talking about in like 5 to 10 seconds, your bread's already going to be toasted, and then you're going to have to flip it. And then the same thing is going to happen on the other side. Now your bread's toasted, but now we're looking to get some nice ooey gooey cheese in the middle. Well, your cheese it's not going to be hot. It's not going to have stayed in the skillet long enough to melt your cheese. So you want to kind of actually have it on a little bit of a lower temperature and let it slowly kind of toast in the skillet. So look, let me show you how we're going to make it. I got 2 slices of bread here. I'm using a little sliced sourdough, whatever bread is your favorite. Now, if you look at our recipe online, you'll see the ingredients we're using, the cheese we're using is, I got some shredded cheddar cheese and some shredded mozzarella cheese in here. And I'm just going to kind of evenly mix this up in this little bowl container right here. And then I'm really going to kind of pack that cheese onto this bread. Generous amount of cheese. Going to have some spilling off to the side. That is great. That's what we're looking for. Really get it down in there. And then again, you see this butter is really only kind of barely melted and the pan's not too hot because we're actually going to cook this. It's going to toast for about 5 minutes on each side so we really start to melt that cheese. So I'm going to get one going right in there. Now look, that's a basic grilled cheese sandwich. Perfect. That's what we're going to do. But also, I love showing alternatives. So if you're watching this and not looking at the recipe, let me show you my favorite grilled cheese that's an alternative. Same bread, 2 slices, but look what I got here. I got some beautiful, this cheese is actually called Saint Andre, but it's very similar to like a brie, a triple cream brie, and this is one of my favorite cheeses, and oh man, is it good. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put some of this Saint Andre cheese right here and use that, just trying to give you all some different options out there. And then watch what I'm going to do. I have some fig preserves. Brie and preserves go together fantastically. So I'm just going to take a little bit of fig preserves and then smear it on the other slice of bread. And man, this is going to make just an absolutely delicious grilled cheese. So I got my brie on one side, my fig preserves on another side. Let's go ahead and get that sandwich up and cooking in that butter. Again, don't post about, man, that don't look very healthy. I know that. We know that. Come on, y'all. This is a delicacy. This is something this is soul food. This is something that's going to be very comforting. And we're going to go ahead and get that cooking. And now we just, every now and then as this cooks, Teflon is always your friend. It helps that bread from not sticking to the bottom of the pan. Every now and then I just like to take my hand and I'll kind of, I might kind of peek just to make sure, you don't want to burn your bread. Just kind of look, okay, it's just kind of doing its thing. But I have it on a fairly low temperature. It's low, low, low. Look at that flame there. Not that big of a flame. Low temperature because I want to slowly toast that cheese and allow the heat from the skillet to slowly start to melt that cheese so it gets nice and gooey. Now, if you come back over here, look what we got going on here. This is really starting to cook and just starting to break down. It's simmering away, and it's starting to break down some of those tomatoes. I'm going to add a few things to this. I'm going to add just a little bit of tomato paste or tomato sauce. And the reason why we're doing the tomatoes, adding that, it's kind of concentrated tomato, the tomato paste. It helps add a little bit of body and a little bit of richness to it because the tomatoes, the fresh tomatoes by themselves, they have a lot of water in it. So by adding the extra tomato paste to it, just kind of gives it a little more richness to it. You'll see this oftentimes whether you're making marinara sauce or tomato sauces in Italian cuisine. They oftentimes add, because tomatoes themselves can be very acidic, you add just a little sprinkle, it's just about a tablespoon of sugar, and that's going to help counteract some of that. Jessie's waving her hand. What you got, Jess?
Stephanie would like to know where she can get the written recipe.
Sure. All of our recipes. Man, I was thinking, Jessie, we basically almost have a cookbook going on our website. You go to our houmashouse.com, Stephanie, and then, we're going to have some menus up at the top. One says resources. Click the resource tab, and then that will drop down the menu where one will say recipes. And boom, there's our recipes. We're going to add that to it. A little bit of chopped fresh basil is going to go in here. I mean, basil and tomatoes, Italian cooking, classic. Then what we're going to do now is I got my handy dandy blender here. we're going to go ahead and puree this whole thing. Now, if you don't have one of these immersion blenders, well, first of all, if you're cooking anything at home, I would highly suggest getting one because it just makes life so much easier. But if you don't have that, you can definitely go into a blender with this. But what the good thing about using the hand blender is, it just saves a step, and it's one less thing you gotta wash at the end of the day. If you look here, look what we got here. Just on that slow heat, we're starting to get some good toast. So I went ahead and just flipped the sandwich. So now we're going to come back with the hand blender again and just start pureeing this. And as it starts to puree it, let's just kind of recap everything that we've put in here because it's not a whole lot of stuff. We put the roasted tomatoes in here. We started by cooking some onion, celery, bell pepper, garlic. Added a little chicken stock, a little basil, and that's it. All just really fresh, vibrant ingredients, which I just really love. And that's just perfect. Again, we didn't even have to worry about measuring too much. I just added enough. If you just add enough liquid to just cover the tops of those tomatoes that we put in, that's all the liquid you need. However, after you kind of puree this, and again, depends on how smooth you want it. I actually don't mind having a little bit of chunks and having a little rustic. So I'm going to stop right here because we're at that point. If you want a smoother soup, just keep blitzing it and it'll get a little smoother and smoother and smoother. But I like those chunks. So we have our tomato soup cooking. Now we're just got to come back and do a little seasoning. A little bit of salt. Always love using my salt out of a container that I can feel how much salt I'm putting in there. Some fresh cracked black pepper. And that's it. I like to add just enough salt to where I can taste it, just enough black pepper to taste it. Then at the end, again, we're having so much richness. This isn't a very creamy soup, but I'm going to add, just watch. Whereas this, I was happy to add all that butter into here. Now I'm literally just going to add, what is that? Maybe a splash. That might have been 1/4 of a cup of cream. And that's just going to lighten up this soup right at the end. And make it a little more creamy. But you really have so much great flavor already from all this the stock and all that. I don't need to add this because I get a lot of my richness, and my cream is actually going to come from our cheese because we're going to be combining the two. When we eat this, of course, we're going to have to do a little dip and dip that sandwich right into here. But that's it, guys. This soup is ready to go. So let me show you how we serve it here at the restaurant. We'll be serving this at Houmas House for lunch on Friday and Saturday coming up. So if you're local to the area and nearby, we would absolutely love to have you. Let me get some of this stuff out of the way. We're going to go ahead and just take some of these. Oh man, look at this. So this one's for me, the one with the brie and the fig. The other one's for Jesse. But look, by letting this go in here, it's really started to melt. Let's get these sandwiches out of here. Again, any bread y'all want to use, guys, is fantastic. I'm going to take my knife. Let's go ahead and cut this in half. And let's cut this in half. Since this one's for me, this is the one I'm going to use. But you'll see, I'm going to show you in a second why we just wanted to go low and slow to really get a good melt on that cheese. So we're going to serve this as a combo. So I got a little cup here that I'm going to put the soup into. Always like to come back with a little bit of more sprinkle of basil right on top. Then we have that grilled cheese sandwich, which, look at this. Look how it's already got that nice melty gooiness from the cheese on the grilled cheese. We're going to put that on top. And man, I don't care where you are. If you're serving this, give me a call because let me know, is there anything better out there than grilled cheese with tomato basil soup? You just can't beat it. Let me know if y'all tried it at home. Would love to know how the recipes have worked out for y'all. And hey, other than that, thank y'all so much for tuning in with us. Upcoming events here at Houmas House. Be on the lookout on our Facebook page. We have information about Valentine's coming out. Guys, you best get on the ball. You know, restaurants book up even during these crazy times. These restaurants are going to book up fast, so you're not going to want to miss a spot at Houmas House. If you're local, we would love to have you. We have our menu and information online, and we'll be posting more about it over the next couple days. Book fast because we will book up at some point. We would love to have you here. Again, I'm Jeremy from Houmas House. Thank y'all, and we'll see you next week.